Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey, everybody. I am so delighted to introduce my guest today, Dr. Anna Melikian. Anna is the host of the Mindset Zone podcast and a sought-after keynote speaker. Anna has a Ph.D. in psychology and more than 20 years of experience working in human potential. Her keynote, The Happiness Fallacy, re-envisions and revitalizes how we think about and work with happiness for personal and collective good. I can sign on for that, definitely. Please join me in welcoming Anna Melikian. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so excited to have you here, Anna. So as you know, on Work from the Inside Out, we love to begin at the beginning, talking about your formative years and how some of those years may have led to where you are today. So take us back to those early years and where you started.
How far do you want me to go?
Well, I know that we always talk a little bit before we turn on record, and I know that you started out in a little village, I think you said, right?
Yes. I was born in a city, but when I was about 6, we moved to the countryside to a small village where my father had born. So there was still the house and the room where you was physically born in that room. So, and everybody knew everybody else. So a typical, I know that I'm originally from Portugal. We are not a Mediterranean country, but the culture is very Mediterranean in many ways.
Yes.
So you can think about an Italian village and put it in Portugal in many ways. It's a small, beautiful place to grow up. And since I can remember, I was a very curious kid. And again, most kids are by nature curious and asking why. I think the main thing is that I didn't stop asking why. Mm-hmm. I kept inquiring and trying to make sense of everything around me, mainly the human puzzle. People were the more interesting puzzle for me. I found other things interesting that I was trying to solve the puzzle. But the humans were the biggest challenge. And since I can remember, and I'm speaking early teens, I always had a drive for anything that was personal development. Even 95% of the Portuguese population, I was raised as a Christian Catholic there. And sometimes the groups associated with the local church, they will organize some kind of personal development stuff. I will sign up for that. And even then, when I start to be able to do things that were a little bit more organized by other institutions that I learn of, I will sign up. I always had that drive of trying to understand me personally and make sense of my growing up process and trying to understand the people around me. So that was really a thread since I can remember, that desire of understanding and problem solving, being human beings, more challenging puzzle.
Now, were you more interested in who you were in relationship to others, or were you also just as fascinated by what made other people tick?
Both things.
Yeah.
I think initially was understanding myself.
Yeah.
And making sense of my feelings and how I was, so to say, making sense of my surroundings. And I think we filter by our own perception. So we are there. But I realized that the system where we are in really makes a difference in the way that we see it. And probably I had more clear awareness about that already in my late teens, early adulthood, when I start to travel to other countries. Because I think when we are born and raised in one place, the cultural, loads of the system regulations absolutely are there. But it's like if since we are kids, we are wearing glasses, we don't see the frames. We are not aware that we are wearing glasses. We are seeing the world through the glasses.
That's right.
But we are not conscious of the frame. When we travel and go, and I travel in Europe, so I went to study to the 1-year exchange student in England. So still Europe, still a lot of the same values and the same way of being. But there was things that were totally different, from practicalities, like I arrived there as a student. Oh, the student restaurant closes at 5 or 5:30.
Wow.
That is early for Portuguese.
Oh, yeah.
That was like, what? And from that small things to understanding that the way, even the social interaction when you meet somebody in Portugal is very, like I said before, Mediterranean. We give 2 kisses, we hug. Even a person that we just meet for the first time.
Right.
In England, there is more of a distance. So you start to become more aware of those things. And interesting enough, when I went back, I think I spent 3 months, and then I came back during the holidays in the winter. And I arrived home to my family in Portugal, and suddenly I realized that we spoke very loud. It's like, why are we shouting here? I didn't, honestly, until then, that I didn't realize I had to go out of that bubble and come back to it to have that perception.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. So I think,
when you were there, what was that year that you spent in England? Was that in high school or during your college? Oh, in your college years.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I started to travel. I did some very travel within the country, still in high school. And again, there is difference from different regions that you try to start to capture. But the travel bug was always in me, but I really start to express itself when I was in college. I went that year as an exchange student. Then I decided to stay 1 year more. Then I did my master's in Spain. Then I came back I lived in Spain for 4 years. I went back to Portugal, worked for a couple of years, and then I came here to the United States. And meanwhile, I was traveling to present I was in academia. So one of the ways of traveling in academia is presenting papers and communications in conferences, in congresses. So I was doing a lot of travel, mainly in Europe and here in the US that way. And in one of the conferences, I came here to Phoenix, and I met the person that a couple of years later became my husband.
So that's what brought you to the US, was a conference, and then you met the person, huh?
Yes.
I see. Well, that explains that. So I'm curious. I know that you in college you studied psychology. Is that right?
Correct. And that is an interesting thing, because the Portuguese university system is very different than the one here in the US. So you have to pick the major when you apply to a college.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to declare what is the major that you want, and you pick the institution a lot basing on that. And I still remember, and this is like a national thing that you apply all universities in the system. And I still remember my first 2 choices was psychology in Coimbra, that is a university town close to where my parents live. Then psychology or Porto, that is the second biggest city in the north of the country. And then electronic and telecommunications in another city there. So nothing to do with psychology, because I was also very good at math and systems in terms of, and the computers were starting and all of that was also something that fascinated me.
Ah,
So I was like a little, okay, if I don't get in the two first ones, okay, I will, it means that the university is saying me that I should do something totally different. So, but I got in my first choice. And, but it's interesting how in our career, things come back because I always, being good with technology was a strength that always served me very well. While I was studying psychology, I did some part-time jobs that were more technical oriented and gave me that extra little money from building websites in the end of the 1990s to so that kind of and even when I started in the online world here in the United States in 2010, having that strength of I could learn easily things online and systems and now all the software as service work allow me to gain some success and traction quicker because that was easier for me than many other colleagues.
wow.
That technology is not there something that they feel energized about.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I can imagine that really served you well. So you have to declare your major when you apply. Is it still a 4-year program?
At the time was a 5-year program. Now, since I finished my studies there, things change a lot. There is the Bologna Agreement to keep everything in Europe more or less the same kind of rules. So now it's 3 years program, the bachelor, and then people will go, if they want to do a master, 2 more years. But at the time that I did my studies there was a 5-year program.
And out of that 5 years, you spent 1 or more or 2 years in England?
2 years. Initially it was to be 1 year, but then I extend my stay there for 2 years, and I double major. I finished the degree by the English university and by the Portuguese. So I did a double major in both places because in England was a 3 years program. So I managed to fulfill all the credits in both institutions to have the degree in both institutions.
Wow. So you studied psychology also in England?
Yes, was psychology.
In English then, of course,
yes,
right?
Yes. And then from there, I went to Spain to do a master program in psychotherapy. That were 2 more years there in Salamanca. That is a beautiful university town in Spain. And was systemic therapy, so all about systems, the family therapy. So a lot. That was another enriching experience in so many levels, another culture, another way, another language. And even in terms of the systemic therapy and systemic way of seeing the world,
yes,
brings our awareness of how complex the systems where we live are and how they influence who we are as individuals. Because traditional psychology, let's be honest, is very individualistic in the way that presents itself, and having that the complement of the systems, I think, is really helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And I studied psychology as an undergrad and did study some of the systems theory as well. I know exactly what you're talking about and some of the distinctions between that and some of the other theories that came before that.
And I bet that you find that extremely helpful working with organizations. You work with people on organizations, but they are in specific complex systems.
Yes.
And having that flexibility of moving of what is going inside you, that influence what is going is like work from the inside out. That inside work is so important. I'm not denying that for a moment. And at the same time, taking in consideration that work inside is done within a context, within a system.
That's right.
There's certain forces that we have to be aware of.
That's right. That's right. At least it's helpful if we're aware of those things.
Yes.
sometimes those things are moving around so fast, it's hard to keep track of it all.
Absolutely.
And especially in the last few years, the systems have changed so much and dissipated in so many ways. I think people are still trying to find their way through what is the system now. I'm hearing a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think here the culture of different countries is a great metaphor or analogy here, because is when you go from one country to the other, you have to learn the nuances and the rules, the social regulations that have a different flavor. Even and like I was speaking in Europe, is still Occidental Europe, very similar kind of base ground, but then there are different flavors, and we have to learn very quickly the playbook, the rules of the game. I think the challenge nowadays in organizations, I think they are feeling it, is that there is a change in the demands in the culture, but there is not really a playbook. We are writing.
There's no playbook.
The playbook is being, the book of rules and regulations is being written as we go along. It's like, so it makes it much more trickier, because one thing that 10 years ago was, what is the big deal?
Right.
Now is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
For leaders, it is difficult for them to understand is that I went over all this, I had to swallow this and that, I had to go, and because the rules of it's like, we are not, it's not Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
That's right. It's true. It's so true. It's like, when we talk about the playbook, I like to think about like a sports coach who's got the whiteboard, right, in their hand, and they've got the dry erase marker, and they keep rewriting the plays right in the middle of the game. And I think that's partly what today's leaders need to be doing is, really rewriting the game as they go along in some ways, because I don't think we really know what things are going to look like even in 6 months.
Absolutely. I love that image of the game, because you have to have a strategy in a game, in a professional game, and everybody has to know what the strategy is, but you totally have to be flexible to adapt the strategy to the situation in hand, because everything depends on how the weather, how the other team plays, all that complexity of situation, and you absolutely have to be resilient. And when things are going bad, you have to do the mental game to bring yourself back. Otherwise, they will keep going bad. We see this in sports so much. They lose the game because they don't have their mental.
Right.
They are not in the right place at that level, and I think. And at the same time, I think this even brings more the importance of being clear about our values and about the inside work that you speak about a lot. Because when things are uncertain, when we have to adapt so fast, if we are not clear about our internal compass.
That's right.
It's so easy to get totally lost.
Yes, it is. And I think you named it. It's interesting when I think about the direction your career took. If one was to look at your career almost on paper, right? It looks like you just took this sort of nice straight line, from psychology, psychotherapy, and you got your Ph.D. and then you went into coaching, and it looks so smooth and linear. And yet there's a lot of different twists and turns that you took along the way. I know that. And it's not that you really, went way out somewhere else. But when someone takes a closer look at that trajectory of how you made decisions about where you went and when and how that happened, it really does start to you made some very intentional decisions and moves.
And at the same time was a very bumpy road. Is what is that expression? Vision is 20/20 hindsight.
That's right.
When we look back, it's easier to connect the dots and to see the through line. But when we are leaving the situation and the door closes in front of our nose, is what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I remember several situations in my own professional career that I felt that door in the nose, and it's not a pleasant feeling.
I am curious, maybe even a little jealous of your ability to function and learn in different languages, and to go from your undergraduate education in both Portuguese and English, and then you went and got your master's in Spain. So, and I think people don't always understand that Portuguese and Spanish are not that similar at all. And so it's not just because Spain and Portugal are next to each other doesn't mean that their languages are that similar. They're really not at all. At least I've listened to both of them, and they're quite distinct. So I'm curious about your decision to go get your master's degree in Salamanca, and if that was a very intentional decision on your part, or whether there was a specific program there. How did that come about?
It was a specific program that attracted me there. But the thing is that I was very good in high school. I was very good in sciences, not very good in languages.
Oh.
Language
really?
learning, absolutely. That was always my struggle. I always have the A's in science subjects and not so much in language, even in my own language, Portuguese, because I have dyslexia. So language was always very challenging for me in some aspects of it. But I decided, okay, we learn French and we learn English. And I decided, okay, English is where most things are now happening. So I'm going to focus on English. I did some things outside the school system to learn better English. And my decision of going to study that year as an exchange student in England was a lot about my plan was coming back to Portugal with a very good English.
And
it's like you throw myself in the pool and I will learn how to swim.
I love it.
And a little bit, because obviously I knew, the Portuguese history of the 20th century, we have so much immigration that went to France, that went to the United States, mainly in the New Jersey area and Newark area. And these are people that, some of them in the 50s and the 60s, they barely had the basic Portuguese education. Obviously, they emigrate by need of finding a way of sustaining themselves and their families. So, and they learn the language. They succeed in big ways here in the United States and in other countries. So it's like, if we have that capacity, yes, I will never lose my accent, but I can communicate, I think, rather well in the English language.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. I love the way you communicate.
There is that thing that we have to learn. And the question, why did I went to Spain, again, was my strength. And this is important in terms of companies and evolution in career, because I was aware that language was not a strength. My brother was much better at language than myself. I had friends that were much better in capturing language and succeeding in the different language than myself. But if I was determined to get something, I think I have the innate kind of, for that, the growth mindset. I think I can learn this. Not that it's going to be easy, but this can be learned. Mm-hmm. And when I was looking for master programs, I looked a very good one in Ireland, in the north of Ireland, and then this one in Salamanca, Spain. And I really liked the program in Spain and what they were doing there. And my mindset was all about, I can learn that. So it's not comes naturally, but I can learn it. So that I knew that was not my strength, but if I want something, I was going to get it. And that is why I decided to go to Spain to learn the Spanish that I need to succeed. And there it was. So yes, we have to play with our strengths without any doubt. We only can be the top of the top a lot by playing with our strengths, but we cannot also let our weakness, between commas here, to stop us from doing things. We can learn enough to do things happen.
So that's interesting. So your motivation for going to school in Spain was to go to this specific program. And
Correct.
So you said, I don't care that languages are not my strength. I will learn Spanish so I can do this program.
Correct.
Kudos to you.
And again, you throw yourself in the pool and you will, but you have some, how do you say, you are not throwing yourself in the ocean in the middle of a storm. You can create the conditions to be safe, but you have to put yourself into the action mode. Otherwise, you really are stopping yourself. If you only in your career or life, you're only going to try something that there are high probabilities of success.
Sure.
You leave a lot in the table. We have to learn, and the process of learning and changing is learning is messy.
Yes.
Our career, you're seeing about, yes, when we look backwards, it seems very, we see the through line, we connect all the dots.
Right.
But it's bumpy. When we are living it in the moment, is a bumpy journey.
Yeah. And so I want to unpack that just a little bit more because I'm very curious. And as I said, a little jealous because I took high school Spanish, did very well in it, and then never really did anything more. And a lot of us here in the US have not really mastered another language. I mean, I know some people who have, but a lot of people haven't. And I'm always impressed with my friends and colleagues who grew up in other countries, many of whom speak more than one language. And I admire that. I'm curious. So when you decided to go to this program in Spain, did you spend some time studying Spanish before you started school there? What was that timeline like for you?
I went about 2 months before the program started to get and to be saying, I knew that the director of the program, he spoke very good English. I did the application. I had some help with it for doing the application to be in Spanish, but I said that since Spanish are totally different languages, but they come from the same root. Both come from the Latin, both are Romance languages. So in terms of vocabulary, we have a big advantage because a lot of the vocabulary comes from the same root, so it's easier to understand. But I still remember the first time when I moved to Spain, I was listening to the news because the news, they speak very fast. Spanish people can speak very fast. And in the news is one of those places was like half an hour and I cannot understand a word of what. Besides, buenas noches, good evening, the opening. I was like, oh, I'm done. I could not understand what they said besides the first 2 words. But then, Odyssey, I went, there was, in Salamanca especially, there is a lot of places that we can do Spanish as a second language for foreigners. There's a lot, it's part of the industry. The way of doing it is going to the country where the language is spoken because you have to practice. Why Americans and English in general don't speak in more numbers different languages that we can go all over, mainly into touristic areas, and everybody speaks English. So we don't need to develop that skill.
I know, but I think it's a little short-sighted on our part, but that's just my opinion. So you clearly did very well in Spain. Or maybe I'm making that assumption, but you got your master's there. did you also get your PhD there?
The PhD was a joint, so I did it through the same English university that I went as an exchange student, Sunderland University in the north of England.
Oh, okay.
But I did it as the clinical work. I did it in Spain. So I was a distant student from England, but the clinical work, I did it in Spain. So it was a mixed program that was amazing to have that opportunity.
How interesting. So you did the PhD program through the school in England, but you did your clinical work in Spain.
Correct.
So
I had my the main supervisor of my thesis dissertation was in England, in Sunderland. His name was Peter Hawkins, a different Peter Hawkins that we know in coaching, in the coaching world.
Right.
But also another amazing, extraordinary human being that I was very lucky to have as supervisor. I had a local supervisor that was the director of the master program that I have done in Spain for the clinical part of the work, and they collaborate in many different projects, so that was easy to do, and the university in England was okay with it, so we did it that way.
Yeah. And what was your area of specialty in terms of your studies, your doctoral studies?
So psychotherapy, and my dissertation was about brief therapies for the management of primary headaches. But our physical pain and how through psychotherapy and certain models of psychotherapy, we could help people manage that situation, that physical situation. It has to do with the body and mind. I always find it very fascinating to bridge that to different dimensions in many ways.
So once you completed your doctoral work, what was your next step?
So finishing the PhD is also a great example of the messiness of change, because I finished my master, and then I start work in the same master program, where I was doing the part of the clinical work. So I was doing the PhD while working in the master program. And then I stayed there 2 years, and I did all the clinical work during that time. And then I got a great job opportunity in a private university in Portugal, in the north of Portugal, that I accepted. And I went back to Portugal, my country of origin, to that position in a private university, teaching in psychology. I was part of their faculty there while I was doing the PhD. And then the PhDs there start to go very, very, very slow because I was busy with my work. But eventually I managed to finish the dissertation. I almost was, they call the ABCs, everything, all but dissertation.
Right.
ABDs, I think it's like that. That is the term.
Right.
But after a lot of persistence, because I always tell people with the PhDs, if you have somebody with a PhD degree, post-graduation, don't presume that the person is very intelligent. Presume that the person is very persistent.
I love that.
Okay, if there is something that we can presume of most PhDs, you have a persistent person, because you really have to have the grit to keep going there. It's so easy just to let it go. But I'm very thankful that I kept my persistence, and I managed to write the dissertation, defend the dissertation, get the certification, and was during that time, when I defend the dissertation, I was already living here in the United States, because there was some time span, and it's like messy. It was messy, but I went to England, I defended, and everything was okay. Then I had the PhD, and I was already living here in the United States, and there was when one of the big doors in terms of career progression closed on my nose, because I thought that having a PhD by English university here in the United States will be easier to get my license as a psychologist.
Oh,
And was not.
really?
Because the system, the American Psychological Association that I'm part of, but for the license as a psychologist, you have to do a postdoc to have the license as a psychologist, as a clinical psychologist. And honestly, I just had finished my PhD. I love study. I love learning. I love the academia. But the thought of almost have to redo my PhD and then a postdoc immediately afterwards was just too much. It's like you finish running the marathon and then you finish like you cross the finish line and they say, oh, another marathon to run.
Right.
Say, okay, I need a rest. Yeah. I'm not ready for that.
Right.
And but that was a big career challenge because I had done all my previous studies in psychology. I did all my training and I was already, I worked several years as a psychotherapist.
Right.
So my life and my future, I was teaching in college, but I had my psychotherapy office. I was very involved in organizations like the Milton Erickson Foundation. Mm-hmm. I had even started an institute in Portugal, the Milton Erickson Institute in Portugal. I was the first one founding there. So I was extremely involved and loving all that work. And then suddenly, now by personal reasons, I came to the United States. I got married, and I could my professional path was this big disruption.
Yeah.
And that was a big, how do you say, a moment there that I was really confused and not know where to go. And I'm very thankful and grateful that was during that confusion and during that uncertainty and chaos that I learned about coaching. Mm-hmm. I stumbled into coaching initially for myself to make sense.
Yeah.
Make sense. Okay, what is happening to me? What can I do? This is a challenge. What are my options? And I found life coaching. And it helped me to clarify my own goals, my own values, and see what was really central for me. And then suddenly was like the dots connect again.
Yeah.
I realized, coaching, life coaching, this is personal development. This is personal development. And I had been in a school in psychotherapy that was all about the therapist do loads of personal development because we are the tool that helps the client. So I have a lot of training in personal development. My passion for as long as I can remember is personal development. So this is just another way of doing that I love.
Yeah.
Then is when I decide to become a coach.
Aha. That makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. And so since you became a coach, you've taken your work into the business world as well.
And then the tour that at the time was messy. And now I'm so glad that it happened because I decided to become a life coach. I took the training to become a life coach. I got the certification as a life coach. I was, love this, love the process, love the coaching training. And then, where are the clients?
Aha.
Because in Portugal, I didn't have that problem to get clients. How do you say? I had an expertise in a very specific area. I was teaching in a private institution, so I had the credibility there. People were seeking me out. I never need to do any advertisement. I just had to print business cards with the place where I opened the office, nothing else. And I was at a full part-time practice. When I left 3 days a week, so I was totally booked there. So I was totally unprepared to be a needle in a haystack here in the United States.
Yeah.
So again, another challenge.
Yeah.
Again, if I want to do and I was seeing other people succeeding, other coaches doing a nice online business. I was wanting to have a home-based business because we are starting our family and my daughter was born. So I start to look around, how can I learn this? I'm very thankful that I think in many areas of my life, I always had a growth mindset. Always believed that I could learn how to do it. So I start to look around, and in my quest to find solutions, I found the Book Yourself Solid system that was created by Michael Port.
Right.
And I got the book. I fall in love with the book. Then, making a long story short, I start to train with him, and then became one of the certified coaches, an elite coach, and then the director of education for the Book Yourself Solid. So it was something that was not planned ahead because I was doing life coaching.
Right.
But then I need to learn business coaching, and I start to be good at it and enjoy that and enjoy helping others. And I decide to become a business coach. And now I'm bringing all the experience of being more than 10 years succeeding in the online world back to bring to my roots of psychology and positive psychology. Even what I'm speaking now is the happiness fallacy. It's all about how can we use what we know of positive psychology, behavioral cognitive psychology, neurosciences, performance sciences to tap into our potential. And I have the tools of the business perspective that allows me to succeed. So everything comes together in a beautiful way, but was not planned that way.
No,
but it makes sense.
It really does make sense. And I know, and I also understand very clearly why your podcast is called The Mindset Zone. It makes perfect sense. And your keynote, The Happiness Fallacy, also makes sense. It's almost like it encompasses. So it encompasses your roots in psychology and then all the things that you've built.
Absolutely.
Up till now.
And this at the core, again, the inside work. At the core, my why is all about expanding potential. Was always, and I think always is going to be, when I was teaching in college, was helping expand the possibilities of the students and the way that they will see the world. When I was working with my patients in clinical work, was all about expanding their possibilities of having a more expansive life and leave some of anxiety and depression behind them.
Yes.
When in coaching, it's all about expanding the possibilities for our clients. In my mindset zone is all about expanding possibilities for ourselves, the ones surrounding around us, and for the world. So that was always there. And part of that expanding possibilities of my why, there is the belief that of the human nature, because there is a quote also from Michael Port that I absolutely love, that is, most business problems are personal problems in disguise.
I love it.
And I think this is true for solo business, one-person business, like coaches and consultants out there. Sometimes they are not succeeding to their potential because of their own gremlins, their own mindset limitations. But in organizations, if we speak with leaders in organizations, if we peel the onion, it's a people problem. I don't know what to do with them.
That's true. Very true.
Most business problems are personal problems in disguise. And at the same time, I have even a stronger belief, if that is the reality, there is the practical reality of it. But at the same time, I know that within us, we have this amazing potential wanting to be unlocked, wanting to be released. As human beings, we have this huge amount of potential within ourselves. So if the people are the problem, but we have so much potential inside us, how can we unlock that potential to solve the problems?
Right.
And to be so, and that is what I'm doing today is like, yes, there are inward work, like you speak in your book, work from the inside out. Absolutely. We have to do personal development work. We can learn so much of high performance. We can learn so much from social sciences and psychology to really be better and understand ourselves better. and better ourselves. And just doing that work, the teamwork can improve exponentially because we are not projecting our things in other people and we understand better the things that are going on. So there is that inward work that I love to do with positive psychology and personal development. And human beings and unlocking that internal potential is amazing in itself. But if we think that human beings are not just individuals, we are these connecting beings, we bring another dimension in that is more an outward work because it's the connections, it's the community, it's the teams, is the networks in business, the networks. I love to work with my clients, coaches and consultants that work with me on the networks, professional networks that we have for business development. And that is so, I don't know any successful business person that doesn't have a network. And everything has to do with that tapping into the potential of organization, of the different people connecting in that organization. So and my big thing is that inward work and then outward work of the connection, the connecting being. So the human being inner, the connecting being outer, is not, you don't add one with the other. You really can multiply. You can amplify. If you consider that two and work on those two dimensions, you can amplify the multiplication of the effect and of the human potential that you unleash. And if you take the inward dimension, the outward dimension of the connecting, and you understand the systems where this is happening, you really can unlock human potential to the nth degree in an exponential way. And that is what I love to do, to work with organizations and leaders in organizations to see that how can they be that catalyzer that can unleash this potential.
Wow. I just love the way that all comes together and it makes sense. And your own story is really a living example of what you're talking about. When I think about each step of the way that you took your career and your own growth and then expanded your own potential, really it's like you put yourself through your own living laboratory in some ways. And as you said, growth, change, it's messy, but I love where it's landed you now, for sure. So tell us, where can people best find you, Anna?
So if they are listening to this podcast, that they should subscribe for sure. And then after they subscribe to this podcast where they are listening, they can look in their podcast, wherever they listen to their podcast, they can look for Mindset Zone. That is my own podcast.
Yes.
And they even can go to mindset.zone instead of .com is .zone. Nice. And they will find the website there, mindset.zone, where they have all the podcasts.
Mindset.zone. I love it.
Mindset.zone. And they will find all the podcast resources and show notes. And they will have there the link to my website. That is melikian.com.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. That is great. I'm going to close out with one quick little question. So, as you know, we're trying to talk here about the transitions and the moves and the changes we make in our careers. If you had to give somebody one key piece of advice as they're thinking about what's next for them, what would that be?
Borrowing from your book, work from the inside out. Allow yourself to take time, trust your gut, and follow your why.
I love it. Of course I love it. And I know you're following your why. So thank you so much for being here on Work from the Inside Out. And it was such a joy and such a pleasure. And I really encourage people to follow your work. I think there is so much to learn from your journey and from the ongoing work you're doing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Anna Melikian. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her extraordinary career journey and interests. What's your career takeaway from our interview? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygulerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 201. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available in print and ebook editions through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. If you were inspired by this episode with Anna, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and please do subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. If you're enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate reading your written review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find at my website, tammygulerloeb.com/podcast. Click on the Apple Podcasts button and follow the instructions provided there. Did you know you can help sustain the podcast by buying me a cup of coffee? Just go to buymeacupofcoffee.com/TammyGL. Since the podcast is self-funded, I would so appreciate your support. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd really love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.